everyone, and welcome to another video. I hope that you're having a great day. Today I want to talk about music and musical instruments. I know that a lot of you love music and would like to describe it to a lot of your English-speaking friends in English, so that's what I want to talk about today. Let's talk about music so that you'll be able to describe it to your friends. Here you go. First of all, I know that in a lot of different languages we use do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do to describe music notes. However, in English we do use it sometimes, like when we sing, but most of the time we actually use A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Some people can read sheet music, right? So they're able to say, oh, that is a B or that is a D sharp. Some people just read the chords. Chords are groups of notes that work well in a certain type of music or a certain type of passage. And then some people actually play music by ear, where they don't read anything. So, for example, when I play violin, I always read the music. What's written is what I play. I do that sometimes with guitar, but oftentimes I play guitar with chords, and that's the same with ukulele. And then there's just a few times that I play by ear where I don't look at music, and a lot of times I do that with violin or guitar. Now let's talk about some vocabulary for reading music. First of all, where the notes are is called a staff, right? So the 5 lines, that is called a staff. And the circles that are on the staff lines are musical notes. And depending where they are determines what note is being implied. However, we have these things called key signatures. Key signatures determine what notes are implied. For example, in the key of D major, we would have F sharp and C sharp, even if it's not written in the staff lines. The other thing is we have different clefs. So we have treble clef, we have bass clef, alto clef, many different kinds of clefs. And these clefs determine if a line gets a C or it might get an A, right? The placement of the notes on the staff lines change based on clefs. The two most common are treble and bass. When playing violin, for example, everything is in treble clef. When playing the piano, your right hand tends to be in treble clef and your left hand tends to be in bass clef. So we have key signatures, but we also have time signatures. Time signatures are what determine the time value of a note and how many beats per measure. So the most common one is 4/4 or common time. That means that there are 4 beats in a measure and that the quarter note gets the beat. So what kind of instrument do you play? If you play the piano is played by hitting the keys. There are black and white keys. If you play the guitar, what you do is you strum the strings, right? Strumming is the motion of putting your fingers or putting a pick through the strings to make a sound. If you play the violin, you might pick the strings or you might use a bow to create sound from the strings. Of course, other than piano and stringed instruments, there are other types of instruments. For example, brass instruments. Some examples are trumpet, trombone, and tuba. These brass instruments, you create a sound by blowing air through them while holding down certain buttons to create different air current through the instrument, and also by changing the position of your lips to change the sound. Similar to the brass instruments, we have woodwind instruments. These are oboe, clarinet, flute, etc. And these are similar to brass because we blow in them to create a sound. We also have percussion instruments. There are all types of drums like snare and bass drum. We also have xylophone. Triangle is also part of percussion. Tambourines. So these are some main classes or families of instruments. We have string instruments, we have brass instruments, woodwinds, percussion, and of course there are a lot of other types of instruments that are outside of this class. For example, piano is a very unique instrument because not only does it have strings, but it's also a percussion instrument because when you hit on the piano keys, another contraption hits the strings like a percussion, but it's also a string instrument. We talked about a lot of different instruments, but the way that we play instruments with each other can be very different. So a lot of times people play as duets, for example, with piano and voice. Sometimes we play in quartets. A very common quartet formation is 2 violins, 1 viola, and 1 cello. Sometimes we play in very large groups like orchestras or bands, right? These are groups with many, many different types of instruments and many different people playing multiple of the same types of instruments. So there are many different groups for playing instruments, and they all have their own unique names. Let's try playing some instruments. So the first one that I will be playing is the violin. We use something called a bow, and this bow is one wooden stick connected to a lot of horsehairs. And we play by letting the bow slide down the string, something like this. We also change the notes by putting our other fingers on the strings, and that's actually similar to the other instruments. We also have ukulele. This, similar to the violin, has 4 strings, and we strum on the ukulele. And I'm not very good, so I only know how to strum, but there are different types of ways you can strum, or you can use fingerstyle, something like this. And then finally we have a guitar. So all these instruments are string instruments, which is what I play. This instrument has 6 different strings, and you can also strum on it, but you can also use fingerstyle, like this. That's all the time we have for today. We have a vocabulary list for all the musical words we talked about today in the description below. So if you would like to review some of the words we learned today, please go check it out. Let me know if you have any other questions about music. We just talked about the basics today, but if you have some more advanced questions, I will be happy to answer them. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day.